He's back. I'd like to call the official August 11th, 2020 City Council meeting to order. If you'll all stand for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Mayor Lample,
Yes, sir.
before you continue on, would you be kind enough to turn your volume up a little bit? I cannot
I
hear
can
you.
turn my personal volume up, but there's no
Personal
mechanical
volume, your
device to be able to get
microphone.
me anywhere else. Yes, sir. All right. On item number 1, we have the consent agenda. Consent agenda is basically July 28th, 2020 regular minutes, July 28th work session minutes, and approval to accept staff recommendation for CNC Lovejoy at Lake Harbor sidewalk vendor. The expenditure number is going to change because that's
93,326.
and the authorization for myself to execute any related documents, and that's basically the sidewalk project on Lake Harbor. Approval and authorization for myself to execute a lease on Meadowbrook property.
Execute and amend.
Execute and amend, and that relates, the amendments were related to no more than 4 cars, and then to just make sure that the property is going to be maintained and kept in an orderly fashion. Item number E, approval of myself to execute Comcast franchise agreement. Your franchise fees are not going up, your franchise fees are not going down. It's the same thing, we're just basically updating the legal agreements as required every so often. Resolution 2020-12 is the CARES Act grant funding. CARES is basically COVID, everything related to the virus where the city's spending money. We've got to basically track that and hopefully get some of that back from the federal government. There is a dollar number, it's $100 and some thousand in the first section. We know the totality, we might get up to 3, but you have to spend it, you know, well, I don't want to say spend it, it's a different way to say it. You have to have incurred the cost to be able to recover the money. You all have that before you. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Ms. Quam?
Aye.
Ms. Van?
Aye.
And motion carries unanimously. It should be noted as a point of order, Ms. Knight is out due to a schedule conflict, and that is an excused absence. Meeting agenda. You've all had a chance to have the meeting agenda. We've run over that. Do you have any recommendations or any changes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
That's with the, okay,
Okay.
second.
If I have a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Mr. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Tran?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3, approval and authorization for myself to execute an advanced service agreement with the Latin American Association to serve as a DMO for, and I'm going to destroy this name, we call it Day of the Dead in English. This was something we had the gentleman come out here at the last council meeting. It's very similar to what they did last year in terms of the event for the same amount of money. Any questions?
I do. I'd like to know if there's any other expenses applied to this event in order to get the event going other than the $30,000. I'd like to see any costs related to the event.
So as we discussed during the last meeting, the only additional cost for the event may be overtime for police officers. But we don't anticipate any additional costs related to the event,
Because that's all the money he's going to get.
basically.
So, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Mr. Vaughn?
Aye.
Ms. Tran?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Ordinances and resolutions. We have a second reading of an ordinance to allow additional work session meeting times. Basically, reference that, this will be your second reading. The city itself has, in its ordinance, for whatever reason, the city has the ability to call its normal work session to order at the first council meeting of the month at 5:30, but it does not have that ability at the second. All this is doing is changing it so that it's uniform, and it allows the city to be able to hold its work session at 5:30 at either one or both of the council sections. And the idea behind that is to give people a chance to have discussions. So if we're gonna come here a little bit earlier, then we can have the discussions and we can leave a little earlier. Any additional discussions on that item?
That's not written in there. Leaving a little early is not in here.
Well, it doesn't, it says 5:30, it's specific, but right now, the city ordinance, for whatever reason, just allows it once a month rather than both times. And this new ordinance basically allows it for both. No other discussion? Go ahead.
How is this gonna accommodate people getting from work, having to get from work, and citizens that want to attend?
I doubt seriously the video is gonna go away anytime soon, even if the COVID goes away. So that's the first thing, is you now have the ability, and hopefully for the rest of time, for your citizens to be able to watch it. You don't have to necessarily attend this meeting, and prior to that.
Well, there are
you didn't have
some
to.
citizens that might not have that ability to watch it.
Agreed.
So,
But right now, you have the ability to have a 5:30 meeting, this meeting could have started at 5:30 today. It could have, right, if we chose to do that. But the next meeting would not allow it to. Now, on top of that, the city always has a right to do a special call meeting, okay? The only difference is, in a work session, let's say you are running a little bit late, you haven't missed anything. Maybe you can show up as you need to. On a special call meeting, if you're not here and you don't have a valid reason for being here, you're now considered an unexcused absence, which puts a little more pressure on the council member itself. I didn't write the ordinance itself in prior time, you would have just worked it out. It's been written since then, so we're just trying to square that up. And to be honest, this also helps you. You like to end these meetings at 9:30.
I like that put in the ordinance that we will come in early and leave early. And I really think that, there again, if we utilize the time pertaining to the retreat again, the council can speak to each other prior to discuss things before we get here. At least we have some information and some knowledge about how the meeting is gonna go. I don't think that the meetings will have to last so long. If we, like I said, with the retreat, we can develop that habit of communicating, which we're not doing right now. So that is the other reason for the urgency of the retreat, is that I think if we communicate with one another regarding information, the meetings wouldn't have to take as long.
Well, a retreat is more of the storming, norming, and performing of group dynamics, right? But I would caution someone to say we're gonna have a whole bunch of other meetings prior to this meeting, because the idea of a work session is an item may actually just appear on the work session to discuss, right? And your citizens get to see it just like you did, right? It was put on the agenda, we could pick any item. Well, we could pick insurance, for example, right? That's the first time that's been on the agenda. There's no other thought behind it outside of trying to see if we can save ourselves some money. So the first time you heard it is also the same time the audience members heard it. Fair?
But you're putting it on the agenda, so
Well, the idea
reaching out
is you would
includes
like to have a discussion about
with
it.
the mayor
and-
too. I mean, we can all communicate before.
But this is where we would discuss it. That's.
No, a phone call.
Well, a
I
phone
mean,
call
we
isn't
can-
necessarily something that everybody here gets to listen in. A discussion right here.
No, I mean, just communicating, that ideas and things that we might have about the situation before.
And we all know that conversations are perfectly acceptable, okay? Nobody's having a debate of that, right? But we've got, city clerk being able to give you the information, city manager being able to update you on whatever information. I assure you, I did not come up with 45 pages of very boring insurance data. Didn't happen. But it's just an item, right? There might be other items that you have. But if we get back to the original, which is related to the work session meeting times, your retreat is going to be, is a little bit different. We'll have a retreat, we agree. Okay. We have, but that's scheduled yet, but we agreed to. Any other questions related to the work session meeting times? Not much. Okay. Ms. Tran?
No questions.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve? Do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Ms. Tran?
Aye.
Mr. Bowman? Aye. Ms. Dean?
No.
We have 2 yes, 1 no. Motion carries. First reading of 2020 Code of Ethics. We've had some
Mayor,
discussion.
I apologize, but if you have 2 to 1, it doesn't carry. The motion can't carry.
What's that?
You don't have 3.
Because she's not here.
Okay, so an abstention is a yes, so is that something we need to check on? She's not abstaining, and
She's
again,
not abstaining, she's not present, it doesn't have enough votes. It would have to be 3 to 1, 3.
2 to 1, so and it has to be 3 to 1. So her mere absence, I don't think counts as an abstention. Which one? But, I mean, I guess let's make sure of that before we draft it.
Well, it either passed or we'll put it on the agenda at the next council.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay. First reading of ordinance related to the Code of Ethics, for those that heard that through the work session. Right now, the city's Code of Ethics basically allows the mayor to pick the majority of the members on a board. And politically, that's a very powerful opportunity to be used poorly. So what we've got is a Georgia Municipal Association, which is basically a member organization that's been around for decades, very solid. And we have taken their policy as their latest policy. We want to introduce that as our new policy, and we would get away from the politics of a board. As that is the first reading, there's no action required on that tonight, even though you've heard some discussion at the work session. Okay. Item C, first reading of an ordinance for voluntary shared leave program. There was some discussion in the work session relating as to whether that should expand beyond just the employee and whether that should expand to the employee's extended family. And I think the leave policy as it's currently written does allow the extension. The question was a larger number of members of the board, we're trying to stick to just the employee. Again, that's also a first reading, and all I would encourage is if you've got some specific language you might want to change, let's just see that in some written form. So if we're going to make it specific to just the employee, which the idea was let's walk a little bit before we run. Let's not just throw ourselves in there. It's a benefit to our employees. It's not something currently allowed. If John gets sick and he runs out of sick time, or he just got here and he doesn't have any, you're pretty much toast outside of family medical leave and things like that. This allows our other employees to be able to donate John's sick time as he may need it for, COVID's a pretty big issue right now, but it could be cancer, it could be some of the more, traditional, serious illnesses. And that's also a first reading, and then that will be second reading next week. General comments, city manager.
No comments, sir.
Citizens comments, public. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor and council members, citizens, I received a phone call earlier today from Carolyn Shirley, and I asked for permission to share the information with you. Buck is in Laura Parks in hospice care. He has pneumonia and lymphoma, and she's soliciting prayers from us for her, him, and the family.
Buck was was a longtime planning and zoning board member, one of the original family founders of the city of Morrow, and goes back a very, very long way. And he's certainly in our prayers. Thank you. And usually once you're in hospice care, it's pretty tough, right?
Yeah, he's in real bad shape. Yeah. She's suffering from dementia also. She can't visit with him, so it's pretty hard for the family.
And I believe Buck was involved long-term fire department, right? Going back, what, 50 years ago?
You're dating everybody in the room. I don't know that anyone, Essie, do you know that?
All I know is that it was something to do with the old fire truck that had the open top to it. That's something I remember. The rest we learned. Other questions from members of the public?
I just have a comment there. Wayne Collins of 6359 Childers. In reference to item 8, second read of ordinance 20-06, the allocation of additional time to 5:30 scheduled work session. I think Ms. Dean had a valid point. You know, I'm all for being able to have work sessions start at 5:30 twice a month. I think it just makes sense, because you will get home and watch Adam 12 at the time of now. But your comment when it came to prior to meetings, you know, council members and the mayor having more communication amongst one another, I think that's important, because it gives you an idea, Councilman Quah, as to how Ms. Dean's, what Ms. Dean's interests and thoughts are when it comes to the mayor's agenda items, because the agenda belongs to the mayor. And the only way that you guys can come to a consensus and come and make good recommendations for the city, especially when it comes to approval of resolutions and economic development, is that you have to be on the same page. Am I saying you're gonna agree always? No. You're not gonna always agree. So if you disagree, don't vote in favor. But at least the communication is there. And it will allow for your work session to go a lot faster and a lot smoother, because you already have a general idea as to what the other is thinking. I just want to make that comment. Also, one last thing. Chief Callaway and his citizen review panel, you got an outstanding chief there. You really do.
Amen, that's right.
Other comments from the public? Hearing none. Comments from the city council? Wow. Mr. Wood?
Leave early.
Miss Tran, any comments?
No comment.
All right, my comments will be pretty straight. There's a number of projects moving forward in the city. You should start to see, one of those that took place right there with the striping on Lee Street. We were hoping some of those counties would go a little bit further toward the railroad track, so we're having some discussions to make sure that happens, because we know you can still drive around those. But at least that's one. We know ultimately you're gonna have Lake Carbon, and I think that's gonna really change how that property looks. And we know that the trail system on the back here is starting to head in the right direction as well. So as it slowly but surely starts to move forward, you're gonna see other projects in a pipeline. So, if you have projects of specific interest to you that might be related more toward subdivision markers, different things like that. Remember, we have a SPLOST project ability that really will start to open up after the first of the year. You guys voted for a SPLOST system in this county. That money cannot be used to pay the police officers anymore. Or not anymore, but we can't use it for those funds. We can't use it for general purposes. So these are things where you want to try to get the most value in terms of what's there. So, and some of those you have to design, and then you ultimately have to implement and build. That is not our money. These are projects you said you want built, and our objective is not our objective. Your demand and the law requires us to build them, right? And we will. But some of those, you can have some input. So No other questions? We'll stand adjourned and we'll go right back into the work session.